Chilly here with Sirius Talis Moon. This is Mars, our Saturn night. And continuing on the energy reading, the moon is approaching on the minute square to Pluto, already on the degree, ruled by Mars in the last decan of Scorpio. Now, the midheaven is 6 degrees Pisces, just crossed from Loud, and ascendant 24 degrees Gemini. I began to talk about where the energy is where there was a business that a Pandora box would open around certain business that did corrupt things, and now is karma coming for that business. But I also said that there could be a case where a very high rank practitioner is coming to the help of someone in the face of them being targeted, but can also be the case where that's not the case and some targeted individual is dealing with the fact that they have learned a completely new skill from scratch and now they're fending for themselves in faces of people that, let's say, they're too high rank to do that. um, and it can be the case that some may see it as a training, okay? But this targeted individual doesn't work for the darkness. Also not for the light, for those that work for the darkness and for the light, okay? And this is why this individual, whatever their field, whatever they do, and it might not be trained to do that in a certified way, and because they didn't go along the lines of what is required for people to comply with when they, okay, because of that, their truth, whatever they say, even when they're, let's say, less experienced than people that's been really, really, high rank, then whatever they say truthfully. So it's both true and it's the truth that nobody says. And I gave example of Aries in astrology. Most people will say, yes, the LGBTQ is the, maybe Palestinian topic. Indigenous societies, yes. Most people don't say it's the cloning project. Yes, that's the Nazi ideologist Ubermensch Aleister Crowley. Why with Aries? I don't know why. I just see Aries and I see that those things correlate with things to do with Aries. I don't know why. I thought it's going to be a couple of transgender having a party. Like I didn't. I was not seeing that this would be, but then I see what is coming up with Aries, and I'm like, well, that's the cloning project. That's the Ubermensch. That's. Now, whichever field of work you the targeted here do is because you do it truthfully, and you do it truthfully because you didn't have to comply with certain things, and because you didn't take any oaths. For example, then you're more free to say things that other people, and it can go for something that is cold cases, something that is. Now, the list of people that, for some people with the targeted individuals, there's not serious people working on that case. And but for your collective, I see, and I give example. I ran into person targeted individual that they weren't certified in law, but they were assisting people when they needed documents. They would write the embassies and so on and so forth, and they found loopholes in the law. They were not exploiting those loopholes. They were like an ethical hacker, but with heuristics. Okay, so it's that type of a case. It's someone that is, I think about that kid that hacked into the Pentagon. He was ethical hacker. Now, here is the thing: it doesn't matter what a person does. When they're professional at it, they begin to develop some intuition. And I saw that there were attempts to try to cause a person to make wrong predictions or to be wrong. Or now it can be that the predictions were conflicting with people that were assigned to these topics, because and with Venus here, what's in between the correct and the incorrect prediction next to Venn diametrics is corruption. Now it can be the case that there is some argument between practitioners and the targeted individual is one of them. Or that the targeted individuals, okay, their case is like the reason they were targeted, okay. Let's just put it that way. You think about when they try to make, how did Feynman call it, cult-like sciences. And then they meet a scientist. They're not particularly trained in any formal way. And what they're trained in formal way is, they're self-taught in some way. Again, I give the example of Aries here because, so, it's something that other people don't talk about. And if other people are like targeted individuals, just because they repel corruption and so on and so forth, that case has people on it that and the boundary setting here is very, very, very intense, okay? Now, it can even mean that it drew the attention. Let's say somebody is, in astrology, let's say we have talismans. So somebody works with one talisman, they take the talisman, they work with another talisman, they take the talisman, work in another talisman, and each time their boundary setting is even more intense. So let's say if this is MK often, okay, then what the person would be fending against would be something like a Frank Olson. Fractions of a second before that, Frank Olson sent himself out the window. But this I saw is karma. And this karma for that, one of the people that related to this case can be around the skill. Now for the targeted individual, it may be the case that they were not even looking to study that skill. Saturn is courses, but Saturn is also what one must, kind of like a duty thing. So let's say that person was not looking to study courses, okay? But because they're dealing with courses, they begin to refine the way they're dealing. And they could even have been resistance. They're saying, what the fuck, it's not even my job. But each time they fend, another truth comes, another truth comes, another truth comes, another truth comes. Which of course draws more attention. And for at least one of the energies, what I'm getting here is that it's a karma around skill. They may have developed the skill of courses, but to curse people. And they're dealing with the person that never intended to develop the skill of courses, but to fend, and when only when they had to fend, then they had to learn. And I think that this skill thing is coming from various trajectories. Because it's a karma to somebody's skill. Now here is the thing. For the targeted individual, the karma is that Saturn is like a graduation test, okay? Except that they never chose this field of study. And Saturn can also be for practicing someone, okay? Someone who's practicing cursing people. That it's kind of a due diligence. Okay? For them, it can be that the karma is on the second house. That would be ascendant Virgo. Sun hour. It can also be the Saturn is in the second house or eighth house. But for a targeted individual, they can even be Saturn in the 10th house, 6th house, 12th house, 8th house, which is occult, or even first house. Because it's Pisces. Pisces can be the life path, okay? Because it's ruling feet. Now, it can be that certain team is operating against certain team and the targeted individual is kind of like caught in the middle. Yes, the moon has just crossed the square. You know what it can even be? For certain people, they think the targeted individual is doing something to them and it's not targeted individual doing that. But I think in this case they know. But this targeted individual is kind of like a karma and they try to get away from the karma, okay? It's something with Saturn, because Saturn rules courses. Now I have another eureka, okay? Because Saturn rules courses and it also rules time and karma. So usually where people would try to revert to course in someone is where they try to avoid karma. But curses would only bring okay? This is why I say never curse. Even if I send, let's say, to have a possibility of assisted death, then only, okay, if it's more humane. Okay, to send back what they send and then and I never initiate courses and I always say to original sender, known or unknown. And if there is like a face or name of person, only if they have really, okay, made themselves visible, that made it very obvious that they are that person. And that would mean in 3D. Now here is the thing, there are certain people at certain rank that, let's say they use in a technology interface, they would know. So, okay, if their name is this, they would know to stop that technology. Okay, so Or they would be in position where that would be, let's say, one of the 5%. Then it's karma, okay? Now, it given me that when it comes to the targeted individual, somebody at a very high rank effed around and now begins to find out. Now it doesn't, I don't know who that person is, okay? So let's say there's somebody at high rank and the targeted individual is like the Saturn transit of that person, okay? Can be that it's not that person that effed around and found out, is that the person that juxtaposed these two effed around and find out. But in any case, there's something surrounding this case where somebody that was targeting this individual effed around and they begin to find out. The cold case deacon of Scorpio, okay? The actions that are regarding something that is already cold case or that they are applying to trine Saturn. It means they are in agreement with karma. Now, I have to say, I have a lot of divination, 29 degrees Scorpio. I should be, if I should be getting like, oh, what is this? I don't know. I you have to speak the truth. So when I say, okay, I see this, I see that, but sometimes I see nothing. So I don't know. I don't know. And believe me, I don't know what it is. Otherwise, I would say, well, I think I could have an idea. Probably something called cases, something, but it's not even the 22 degree here. So I don't know exactly. But it's actions to do with something that is some actions to do with something that from long time ago in agreement with karma. Here in the 6th house, let's see if it's still the 6th house. No. Now it's the 5th house. Oh. Either with children. They can try to twist gravity, but although it does move. There was a fantastic tarot reader that she always said, I cannot make this up. That's exactly that. It's moment like this. One would even say Kodak moment with that Mercury there. Now here's the thing, people around me know more about me than each and everything. but it can be some photo to do with something that Mars is yes, or something that people do with the penis. Okay, he's applying to sextile Pluto, so it can be that technology records frequency and translates this into picture for the people that thought they underneath gloved hand. And agree with Saturn, so Saturn is karma, and Jupiter is with Procyon in the first house of Sun. But that the moon is first house of some lover, child, I don't. Ooh, child. um, lover's child. I don't know. Enemy heaven in the ninth house. Global scandal. Interesting. Sexual sovereignty to do with lover, children. Something people do for fun. Mm-hmm. Jupiter trine in this. Sometimes it doesn't have to be like something malefic, but I don't know. Sometimes it can even be something that was an old affair, although with Lilith is sexual sovereignty. So usually, usually Lilith is not so. We're not living in a world where sexual sovereignty is still honored. Um, so I think that this one is certain actions, maybe with lovers or that were photographed, and perhaps the photograph was a violation of the sovereignty. Perhaps not only for the photograph. I don't know. But there's certain karma to that. I can't say, well, this chapter is closing because this is a new moon. And because of something professional, then the targeted individual, basically because the targeted individual is professional, okay? But not for certified. It doesn't give me certified. It gives me that Saturn plays the karma of actual praxis, okay? Not the on paper praxis. And there's an energy to try to constantly demote the targeted individual. Now, it can be that it's just coming from their own, from their own issues with themselves, or that they see that that person is not exactly fake, so to speak, and they don't like it. more things to do with that. Midheaven Rahu. Fate, a choice that can bring peace. Fate, a choice for someone's favored. Fate, a choice, it's a big choice. But the role of fate in that choice is also big. And I don't know what is that choice. Maybe someone favors someone. Okay. It can be, Pisces can be. I talked about the water tragedy, the water sign tragedy, because they tend to try to reflect to a person how they feel in a way that undermines. Okay, and so it can be that somebody felt, let's say, unsupported, and it can even be that they weren't really unsupported, but instead they try to curse the person that they would not have support, and this the drama tantrum type of. And it's their way to call for help, but basically what came out was they were undermining themselves, and that was a part of the karma. Either that, or it was some sort of tactic or strategy to try to undermine the opponent, but the opponent is actually the remediation. Anyway, it's a very long day. Today, very long day with this new moon. And Moon Pluto transits are usually like that because it's very intense and it's of a purgatory. Somebody had somebody had an emotional coping mechanism of when they were getting into temper tantrums. They you know, had a parent where, when I was still in contact with person that back then was a best friend, that parent, when they would get into temper tantrum, they would say things. Now, I would get everything filtered until one day that friend was in a temper tantrum and they told me what my parents said. And it was like, I wish that they would have this, I wish that and so on. And which, of course, later they don't have active memory. Nothing like that happened. Maybe I don't remember. No, I never said that. But this is basically somebody had an emotional coping mechanism that was a temper tantrum. And they used curses. I'm half Dutch, and in Netherlands, people use a lot diseases. And I wish the person to catch that and to. And so this emotional coping mechanism, okay, I said that we're going to have emotional coping mechanism that no longer work. And this is where somebody woke up and chose violence. And then that emotional coping mechanism either would usually be understood or tolerated, or now there was something about, because it's this in conjunct with Neptune, that coping mechanism was not even understood. Either because they didn't see who is it or what is going on, or the identity around the sender. It can even be the two identities blended and the one acted like this, and when it comes from one energy, it's like, oh, your temper tantrum again. And when it comes from another energy, it's like it's not understood because it's not the same energy. Or it's the same, or something along that line. All because there was an expiration to that coping mechanism and it crossed the threshold and then it was not understood. Okay, Moon is in conjuncting, was in conjuncting Saturn. And then what happened is that person felt like now they feel left, now they're being held accountable. Before that, they thought that they imagined they're not supported. Now they're being held accountable. And it's like a karma that is like, how should I say that? It's not about something on purpose. It's kind of like kind of like you try to say something to a family member or whatnot, and suddenly they don't understand what you're talking about because they forgot that this is one of your coping mechanisms. But this incident brought the threshold. It's like that coping mechanism doesn't work anymore. People are not going to wake up to you trying to curse them to have no support and so on and say, oh, okay, that person needs help. Now, what I can say about the structure of for this mind control thing is because it's a personality cult, then they put people to perpetual trauma, and because they've been that since childhood, we need to look at this as a system, okay? And what are the points of interference in that nervous system? And to put the boundary, okay, is kind of like Linux, okay? With open source code where the people, if they identify something, they need to put the boundary. And this is when the open source becomes people setting boundary to exploitation, then that would be the normal. When it's not like that, then the people surrounding the personality cult, okay, that are in the gradient of sovereignty that is higher either because they weren't born into the cult or because they have left the cult and crossed certain threshold of healing by setting those boundaries, by the way. And again, this is, I know that people try to set the boundaries, that the torture, that this, okay, so it's So because at anyway the result of this, okay, if the whatever the input of that system, okay, the output of that system um, cannot be perpetuation of evil. Okay, so this is where these are the boundaries of a lot of things coming around boundaries, but also with Saturn implications. And it's more than one energy operating here, but regarding the energy of the trajectory, and it's also regarding the Pandora box around that real estate business, okay, that's entrenched with the occult because they have in karma, because that Pandora box is said to be open. Even so much so that it's impossible to help this person without opening that Pandora box. And it's about the mind control of the system. At least 3 cases, even 4 cases. Even technology that is like interfering with neural activity. Okay? Okay? So there are certain Pandora box that has to be open. Whether it's a politician that's being accused of something, all that happened with children, okay, and to explain themselves, okay, would take opening a Pandora box around the nervous system and how these, again, how these things work, that would completely shake and dumbfound people, particularly around artificial intelligence, but decentralized nervous systems. Because this personality called to mind control, it works kind of like almost like AI. And that's of course supposed to be classified information, but the situation that the person got entangled in is something that to explain what happened to them, um, a big Pandora box, or it can be, okay, business with real estate, that something happened with the tenant, and now to explain why that tenant ran off and so on, and okay, a big Pandora box to explain what happened to the realtor. Okay, big Pandora box. And particularly they try, now here's the challenge also, because the people that are actually assisting the system to cease having the output of perpetuating evil, and this is not this, how should I say it? It's not something that certain people from within that system don't necessarily desire, just they don't know how to do that. And the people from outside the system, they have like a bit more of the stability to do that, which of course creates a lot of, you know, a lot of things, reactions and so on. But what the thing is, whatever the input of the system, the output can no longer be perpetuating evil. Now, people even struggling, because it works on the emotions sometimes, which program is activated. And because the emotion of people feeling helpless, or people feeling disempowered, or people feeling that another person is having the emotional resilience privilege that they don't, or they have this emotional wounds that they cannot even begin to fathom, and other people, okay, and it's not about a lot of tarot readers or whatnot to say, this is because they didn't do their work and didn't this. No, not in that particular case, okay? And then still the output cannot be perpetuating evil, so the people from outside the system, they set the boundary, but the people that are inside the system, a lot of them don't know how to set that boundary, and okay. and and the things, the many things to supposedly explain are of a type of thing that, let's just say, one picture and a billion explanations of the best meaning people, that is challenging. and and at the same time, to take to how should I say that, to incarcerate the visible, first of us would give us an astral skinwalkers, okay, and secondly, it doesn't tend to the handlers, so they will just be handlers of some other person, okay? It's just, and the people that are using curses, um, how should I say that? The implications to that curse. Okay, so okay, but the outdated emotional coping mechanisms, particularly in stuff like creating diseases in people or trying to curse people of any, because the output of the system cannot be perpetuating evil anymore. But to tackle that, to correct the corruption, a Pandora box has to be open. And this Pandora box was trining Pluto. And it can also be person that, let's say, they never got to, let's say, get the psychiatric diagnosis or whatnot, which would also be incorrect, okay? But they allowed another person to deal with all the aligning the stigma around mental health and so on. But now they got themselves entangled in something that, to correct what they've been dealing with, a Pandora box around what's happening to them. Now, it can also be people that are like business people. Okay, it's a big trajectory. And neurodivergent is not suffice, okay, to describe what's going on within those systems. Or even a person that's occultist, okay, and to address what's the issue, a giant Pandora box. Oh, occultist is interesting. That covers way too many people on the list. More than we know. Um, Now the moon, this new moon, yes, applying to Pluto, squaring Pluto is a purgatory. Not just the moon in Scorpio. The moon in Scorpio is particularly in 2.5 days will be better, but it's a very intense purging where the moon is in an uncomfortable position. Even I'm tired. I've been recording for an entire day. So I said that this is where I was talking about the jabs. And this is where a certain coping mechanism with Scorpio, we ask, what's underneath that behavior? What's underneath? And something is being revealed, or it can be that some additional steps have been, somebody been trying to take some additional steps as to do with the moon. Somebody's parent, somebody's, okay, um, and now it's being revealed. And through that moon, something is being revealed. But this is not a full moon, it's a new moon. And there's a certain thing to do with technology as well. Which means that there is a certain interface with technology and people where sometimes the technology is but it's also because certain people have, you know, parts of personality, let's put it that way, that they can be dissociated from, then one doesn't necessarily know if it is a computer interface, a part of personality, and can be combination, but it has an effect in the real world to all parties. Okay, so there's definitely something technological involved. Even trying to teach a technology to do something. Okay, there is also a type of blending of energies that's been slightly disturbed by setting energy boundaries. Okay, one of the energies is something very funny. It can be like ruler of the first house in the seventh house, ruler of the seventh house in the first house, ruler of the eighth house in the, and so on and so forth. Because, um, okay, and it can be like, and because there's something about the blending of the energies. I want you to think about the term energy form. Now, the things that are causing confusion with the identity of. This is where people are going to have to treat that with a lot of compassion because um, how should I say that? There can be confusion around the energies. Confusion about the identity of someone. There are many ethical questions, okay? Not even on the like big scandals and stuff. There are many ethical questions that